Some days worry, some days glad, some days more than make you mad. Some days more than shine. When you see what's coming on down the line. Some days you say, not me, never. Some days you say, bless God forever. Some days you say, curse God and die. And the day comes when you wrestle with that line. Some days tussle, and some days groan, and some days don't even leave a bone. Some days you hassle all alone. I don't know, sister, what I'm saying, nor to no man if he don't be praying. I know that love is the only answer, and the tightrope lover the only dancer. When the lover comes off the rope today, the net which holds him is how we pray, and not to gods unknown, but to each other. The falling mortal is our brother. Some days leave, some days grieve, some days you almost don't believe. Some days believe you, some days don't. Some days believe you, and you won't. Some days worry, some days mad, some days more than make you glad. Some days more than shine. Witnesses coming on down the line. Witnesses coming on down the line.
We are all circling round the same sun. We are all here to play our part. We are all breathing in the same air. We are all walking works of art. We are all filled with our own blessings. We are all living with our pain. We are all keeping it together. We are all trying to stay sane. We are all responsible for each other. responsible for each other.
We are all searching for our wholeness. We are all feeling incomplete. We are all yearning for a good life. We are all living with defeat. We are all responsible for each other.
We are all responsible for each other.
Responsible for each other.
Responsible for each other.
Responsible for each other.
We are brothers and sisters, no matter what we see. On the outside we look different, but the same, you and me. Missing the big picture that we're sharing time and space. If we're disconnected, then connect to the human race. We are all given the gift we call life. We are all free to decide. We are all each other's neighbors. We are all sharing the same ride. We are all circling around the same sun. We are all here to play our part. We are all breathing in the same air. We are all walking works of art. We are all responsible for each other. We are all responsible for each other.
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 Zamru Adonai Bechinor Bechinor Vekol Zimra Zamru Adonai Bechinor Bechinor Vekol Zimra
There comes a time in every fight when it's been going on so long that the reasons it all began are far away and ancient news. When the only answer left is, that's the way it's always been. The way it's always been is broken. It's time to open up our view.
Let me hear my voice like I've never heard before. Let me see through eyes like I've just been born. Open up my heart, open up my soul to listen, to care, find goodness everywhere. Open up my heart, open up my soul to listen, to care, find goodness everywhere.
There comes a time in every age when there's no choice but to change, when we evolve and learn and grow and clearly see what has to be. And right now the only answer is, we are all made in God's image, worthy of human dignity. We're only free when we're all free.
Let me hear my voice like I've never heard before. Let me see through eyes like I've just been born. Open up my heart, open up my soul to listen, to care, find goodness everywhere. Open up my heart, open up my soul to listen, to care, find goodness
Set my heart free, set my mind free, set my soul free, set me free. Set my heart free, set my mind free, set my soul free, set me free. Set my heart free, set my mind free, set my soul free, set me free. Set my heart free. Set my mind free, set my soul free, set me free. Set my
We are only free when we are all free to be. We are only free when we are all free to be. We are only free when we are all free to be. Oh, we are only free when we are all free to be. We are only free when we are all free to be. We are only free when we are all free to
Shabbat Shalom to you. Welcome to our, this is a long title for our service, MLK Shabbat Unplugged, virtual service at Temple Emmanuel of Beverly Hills. And as you can see, we've got the band here, although we are very separate. There is Zach. Say hi, Zach. And there is Ava, Hello, Ava. And there is the cantor in the corner over there. We put you in the corner here. So it's so nice to have you with us this evening. This is a special Shabbat because our Jews of Color Task Force are going to be helping us through the service. And thank you also to Rabbi Sarah Bassin, who was our curator. And we want to just sit back and relax and let Shabbat enter into you after another crazy week in our world. So we'll start by singing How Nice It Is That We're All Together. It's time to welcome in Shabbat with the Shabbat candles, and the moment that happens, I really should say happy birthday to my dad, because once Shabbat begins, we head into this day. Tomorrow's his birthday, and I wanted to say happy birthday, Dad. Another 92 years, hopefully. So let's go to the Brer's house for them to light the candles for us this evening.
Shabbat Shalom from the Brer family.
I'm Jasmine.
I'm Emily.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Jeffrey. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Brayers, for getting Shabbat started with that Shabbat light. And as the angels went around and they saw you lighting the candles, they said, may all the houses of Israel be like this one. So we welcome in those angels, those ministering angels, as they go around town, checking in to make sure we've lit the candles. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom. Bachuni leshalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim,
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Seitem leshalom,
Seitem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom. Seitem leshalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Mimelech,
Malchei Hamlachim. Okay, Zach.
Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim,
HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
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 HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We've started getting Shabbat going, our bodies moving, our voices rising, the candles have been lit, and now let's take just a moment to go through our week and reflect on what happened to us this week and leave behind what we want to leave behind and hold on to what we'd like to hold on to. Chazarat HaShavua, a review of the week. And now, to set the introduction, set the stage for our service tonight, I'd like to go over to Skylar Quinn.
Hi, my name is Skylar Quinn, and I'm going to be reading an excerpt from Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of property in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come back to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring the sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. We've also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to uplift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
Thank you, Skylar. Now let's continue welcoming Shabbat. With Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Zamor vezamor v'dibor echad.
As we welcome the Sabbath bride. now in the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Close our eyes. We'll sing of the oneness in the universe. That which binds us all together. 6 words. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu like to take you to Ella right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Ella Nelson. I'm half African American and half Caucasian, and I'm Jewish. So growing up a person of color in Los Angeles, I'm pretty sheltered from racism that's apparent in a lot of the rest of the country. That's not to say that I don't experience some microaggressions or little acts of racism. I've definitely heard the, oh, you don't look Jewish before, and I've been the only person of color at a pretty large Jewish sleepaway camp. And I've even been called the N-word a few times by complete strangers. So I've had to learn that there will always be small-minded people that only see me for the Jewish star around my neck or the color of my skin. That's not to say that it doesn't get to me, but I've just kind of had to learn how to put those thoughts aside. What really does upset me is seeing these blatant acts of racism on the news. I constantly see the faces of my brother, my dad, people I love in victims of police brutality. I know that it could easily be them for no other reason than the color of their skin, and that's really hard for me to think about. I've definitely spent nights just in my bathroom crying, not knowing what to do, especially during COVID. I often feel so helpless, but I've had to learn how to turn that anger and fear into fuel to fight for freedom. It's not easy, and it definitely takes a lot of mental strength to not just sit in my bed, give up, and mope, but I've learned how to turn those negative thoughts into thoughts that will actually serve me and actually help people. I've done things like go to DC with the temple to fight for voting rights. I started a social action club with some of my friends at school, gone to protest. I've taken summer classes to learn about racism and bias. And I urge you to turn any negative emotions that you're feeling right now, and I'm sure seeing the news that a lot of us are feeling very overwhelmed by what we see, but I urge you to turn that negative emotion into fuel to fight for equal rights and to fight for freedom for people whose voices are not being heard. So now, talking about freedom, we're going to join together to sing the Miha Moha. Thank you, bye.
Thank you so much. Now let's sing about freedom. Miha mocha va'elim Adonai. Miha mocha let's pick it up a little. Miha mocha va'elim Adonai. Miha mocha nedar b'kodesh. Norah te'ilot. shelter of peace to come over us as we lay down to go to sleep tonight. Ufros Aleinu, Sukat Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu, Sukat Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu, Sukat Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu. We've reached that part of the service where we think about those people we love and care about who are in need of healing. So if you'd like to start writing in the chats on Facebook Live or on YouTube, the people that you're thinking about tonight, that are in your hearts and in your minds. And we'll join together and we'll sing for our own strength. And then we'll pause and hear those names. And then the second half of the blessing, we'll think about all those names called and pray for their healing. And Bruce Corwin and Ann Goldman, Norma Glickman, Warren Roston, Rhoda Sharp, and Michelle Sipe.
Jason Weisberg, Marcel, Mobley Amelie, Bobby Herman, Lawrence Stemple, Alan Scobin, and Romy Scobin, Stephanie Gilbert, Howard Grower, Panina Landau, Rachel Perks, Paula Gelber-Jomi, Evelyn Preston, Nick Gore, Dottie Farb, Ian McVinty, Jade Lynn and Micah, Jason Weisberg, Lynn Sine, Elizabeth Goldman, David Kunkel, Jacob Arujo, Norma Beck, Stephanie M. Gilbert, Jackie S. Vander, Lottie First, Bob Howell, Helen Morrow, and Jason Schiller, Jared Blumenfeld, Stephen Abraham Kunin, Lynn Stiles, Katie Diffenbaugh, Jane Kathleen Overton, Rebecca Siebert, James Tull, Andrea Hamill, Wayne Phillips, Stu Sheeslow, Josh Andrade, Judy Leland, Helena and Andy Hale, Lois Liebman, Rita Newman, Baby Raquel, Mary Barbie and family, Arun Kant and Miriam Adelson, John Don, Marlene Wasserman, Jill Adler Moore, Myron Resnick, Larry Zuckerman, Sylvia Zuckerman, Katina Sharp, Harab Yisrael Gadalbin Batya, Susie Gordon, Derek Jackson and Peggy Harmon, Marty Cruz, David Aaron Weiderman, Daniel Michael Gallant, Mary Kramer, David Chadwin, Ike Silverhart, Christina Silverhart, Denise Wald, Dan Weston, Holly Lazzarini, Denise Bott, Patricia, Valerie Bushmeyer and Carol Leonard, Denise Lavender, Trish Smith, Felix Carbarjal, and Florence Silverstein, Ellen Ezrin, Judy Foreman, Rich Weiner, Mindel Ruchel Bat Razel, Yehudit Nissenbaum, Jody Connolly, Derek Jackson, Elaine and Paul Corman, Tony Bernabe, Victoria Ortiz, Ricardo Yanez, David Steiner, Heidi Brent, Betty Grill, Andrew Haas.
We continue now with the Amidah. And we rise together. We'll sing the first line of the Amidah together, and then we'll continue on silently with the prayers that are in your heart. So if you would like to, and you're able, please rise.
Ooh.
Hi, my name is Maya, and I'll be reading a poem by Dr. Therese Johnson titled Black and Jewish. Here we go. May we all put aside our differences and work together in love and peace to make a difference in the world. May we never forget the slavery and persecution of our people. We share a common story and a powerful legacy of strength and perseverance. Regardless of our differences and similarities, may we continue to collaboratively and positively impact change. We can all make the world a better place in peace, joy, and love. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much. And now we go to Alana Kaufman, our special guest speaker tonight, who's been involved in a lot of the Jews of Color initiatives that have been happening in this country. And we're very excited that she's joining us this evening. So let's go right to Alana.
Good evening. Shabbat Shalom. My name is Alana Kaufman, and I'm the Executive Director and the founder of the Jews of Color Initiative. We're an organization heading into our 4th year, and we do just 3 things in the United States Jewish community. We run the nation's only philanthropic fund focused on Jewish people of color, and we fund just a narrow pathway around building out the field for Jewish people of color. So we fund things like leadership development, establishing standards of best practice and excellence, and we fund things like research, the bedrocks of information that helps advance our community, deepen knowledge, and really advocate for the experiences of people. The second thing we do is we support research in the U.S. Jewish community. We fund researchers focusing on Jews of color, and we commission national research projects to help elevate the experiences, the perspectives, the understandings that Jewish people of color have and bring to our U.S. Jewish community. And we do this for the U.S. Jewish community, so the Jewish community has a better understanding of who we are as Jews of color, our experiences, and how to make our community stronger and tighter as one that sees itself and understands itself as truly multiracial. The third thing that we do is we educate the community. We are not diversity trainers, and we don't do any diversity training. We have colleagues who do that much better than we do. What we do is we work with leaders and change makers on shifting the paradigm where we used to think of ourselves, understand ourselves as largely white and Ashkenazi as a community, and we're moving from a space that understands itself to be both multiracial and multi-ethnic. And so let's get into the numbers. First of all, when we talk about Jewish people of color, what are the numbers really? Well, there are about 7 million Jews in the United States, and that includes people who are 0, babies, to those who are most elder in our community, the entire range of Jews in the United States. I know that we often talk about a number more like 5 million, but 5 million doesn't include those young people ages 0 to 18. And I'll talk about why that's important in just a second. But there are around 7 million Jews in the United States, and 1 million, 12 to 15% of us are self-identified as people of color. That means we experience the world as people of color, we are experienced in the world as people of color, and we see and experience our Jewish life and our whole experience as whole beings as one that is multiracial, multi-ethnic, and part of a multiracial fabric of the United States. Beyond the number of Jews of color in the United States, 20 to 25% of US Jewish families self-identify as multiracial. That's 1 in 5 families in general, and on the coasts, the numbers are like 25%. And why is that important? That means when you're thinking about your Jewish community, your Jewish communal experience, a train is going by. When you're thinking about your Jewish communal experience, when we think about who's in the US Jewish community, we need to understand that at least 1 in 5, if not 1 in 4 families sees itself, understands itself, and experiences itself and the Jewish community in a way that's multiracial. That means even if you're seeing the white member of that family, there's a person of color at home, and that family self-identifies as multiracial. What about our Mizrahi and Sephardi family? Well, the data tells us that something like 400 to 500,000 of US Jews self-identify as Sephardi or Mizrahi. We also need to find out much more about that number. And what can we learn from this idea of US Jews and some US Jews being white? Well, what we know is before some would argue the GI Bill, Jews from Europe, specifically Eastern Europe, were not identified as white in the US. They were identified as an other European and lower on the stratification and structure scale than traditional whites in the United States. Traditional meaning those that come from a background that might be expressed from a Northern European perspective. But sometime during the GI Bill, we had an opportunity as US Jews from European backgrounds to accept the tools of upward mobility in the United States. And in that case, it was the GI Bill. Those tools of upward mobility were not offered to our Black and Brown friends, family, and community members, but they were offered to Jews of European background. And so in moments like that, when US Jews of European background have had an opportunity to reach for the tools that help you ascend into an experience of privilege and an experience of power that's specifically afforded to those who present white, one might argue that US Jews from European backgrounds became white in the United States. I also want to recognize that that sense of whiteness, the privileges that come with whiteness. While I don't share that experience, I do understand that that privilege is conditional. And we understood how conditional that privilege was in Charlottesville when there were chants that were anti-Semitic and frightening and terrorizing in nature that were focused on the Jewish people. And so on the one hand, we appreciate that with white skin privilege comes access to whiteness and all the experience and the tools of whiteness. And on the other hand, Jews of European background have a whiteness that might be understood as conditional because it depends on the context and the conditions, how that experience of whiteness is seen, is viewed, and is understood as it relates to themes like power and privilege. So what else do we need to know about the numbers of US Jews of color? Well, if you think about 1 in every 7 Jews is a Jewish person of color, if there are 2 minyanim, there should be almost at least 3 Jews of color in there. If you're thinking about your synagogue classrooms, your day school classrooms, if you're thinking about groups, youth groups, groups of people who gather in the Jewish community, out of every 14, there should be at least 2 Jews of color. And on every board and on every staff and on every committee, there should be these Jews of color. So my question to you is, when you look around the room, are there the numbers of Jews of color in the space that there should be? Are we thriving in those spaces? Are we ourselves? Are we representing other people? Are we tokens? These are such good questions to ask ourselves when we're talking about a thriving multiracial Jewish community. I also want to talk about why is it important to have numbers. On the one hand, I wish we didn't have to count how many Jews of color there are. But if we understand that the numbers are far greater than we have both reported and imagined historically and over time, that means we need to know a lot more about this population. And we also need to understand how to create some equity in a context where Jews of color historically have been either underseen, underrepresented, underreported, or in some cases, unfortunately, omitted. When we think about why this is important, well, when we look at numbers and some of the reasons why the US Jewish community does so many demographic studies is to figure out how do we strategize about how to support the US Jewish community? How do we bring in funding? How do we bring in resources? How do we create programs that are aligned with your engagement desires? What I can tell you is when you think about Jewish communal funding, in the context of COVID relief, to just give you a micro pointed example, something like 0.0049% of communal funding for the Jewish community that was focused on COVID, that 0.0049% went to Jews of color. So if there are 12 to 15% Jews of color in the United States, and if we know that in certain situations, Jews of color are a vulnerable population like COVID, it helps those numbers and those frames help inform why we need to understand how people in the Jewish community who are Jews of color are experiencing certain issues, certain phenomena, certain concerns, whether it be community engagement, responding to a crisis like COVID, or creating opportunities for multiracial, multi-ethnic groups to participate in Jewish life. And if we understand the numbers behind Jews of color, then we can understand how to create opportunities to support Jews of color that are not only representative of the population of Jews of color, but the needs of Jews of color in our families. All right. And so let's talk about why this all matters. First, our Jewish communal leadership is almost exclusively all white. We lack the capacity as leaders who are only one perspective or of only one background. Those leaders lack the capacity to see and support the full diversity of the Jewish community. Community spaces are curated through tools and lenses informed by whiteness. So what do we mean by that? What would it be like if we created a Jewish community center or a Hillel house or a synagogue, but those who created the vision and the reality were multiracial and multi-ethnic and dedicated to our Jewish community in all those ways and through all those lenses? Then the way our spaces would take shape, the experiences people would have in those spaces, the aesthetic would change, and they might bring people closer together because they would more closely resonate with the diversity of folks. Lastly, we aren't modeling and we're not preparing for the current and future racial diversity of our U.S. Jewish community. If we know 12 to 15% of our U.S. Jewish community are multiracial, we also know from looking at this theme called cohort replacement that young people ages 0 to 18, each next generation of Jewish babies born in the United States is more racially diverse than the generation born before them. So the group of babies born yesterday to Jewish United States are less racially diverse than the group born today. And each day forward, our community is getting more racially diverse. That means we need to have role models. We need to be prepared. We need to have curriculum. We need to have programs, and we need to have opportunities designed and curated for a multiracial U.S. Jewish community. Why else does this really matter? Well, for us as a Jewish community, it's an issue of obligation and equity and justice. We, right here in this room tonight, we are the antidotes to racism. We are the antidotes to ostracentrism, and we are the antidotes to privilege hoarding. We've seen the cost of racism in the U.S. Jewish community, and we've seen the cost of racism in the United States. We are in the middle of a time where we are awakened like no other, and we must be responsive to the fact that racism, white supremacy, and white nationalism are poisons in our community, and they are poisons not only for the United States in general, but they're poisons for the U.S. Jewish community, because we too are multiracial, and we must thrive as we are to hold true to our obligation of Lidor Vidor from generation to generation. If we don't get it right around being multiracial and multi-ethnic in a U.S. community, nobody will. We are 2% of the population, and we need to be able to understand ourselves as not only multiracial and multi-ethnic, but we also need to be able to hold the pain and the promise of this process. Transforming from a space of inequity to equity is painful. Transforming from a space of inequity to equity takes courage, and it takes commitment. And the U.S. Jewish community, as a multiracial Jewish community, is relying on all of us to be able to do this work so our babies can go to shul, they can go to day school, they can go to summer camp and see reflections of themselves and be in environments that understand who they are as multiracial beings, understand who we are as a multiracial community, and make us excited and even more committed to Jewish life than we are as we are today. Why else is this important? It's important to count all Jews, and it's important to develop the capacity to count those beyond our imagination, beyond our mind's eye. When we just count who we think should be counted, or we're just including who we think should be included, we are guaranteeing a narrow perspective because we are limited as beings. Our imagination is limited. And it's a crime of omission to not count everybody. And it's a moral and ethical violation to not count everybody. And so how do we do that? We do that with consciousness. We do that with awareness. We go into a room and we say, we know everybody is not here. We know the representative voices and perspectives are not all here, and some are missing. And we have an obligation not only to ourselves, but to our children and to each next generation to be thoughtful about who's missing, to make sure we count them, and to leave the doors open to be able to count those beyond our own imagination. There was a time in this community when we couldn't imagine ourselves being beyond white. That time has come and gone. There will be a time in this community where we can't imagine who will be coming next, and it is incumbent upon us to build the capacity and the tools to be ready for the next generation, so that when they come to our door, it doesn't matter if we don't recognize them. It matters that we welcome them in, because each next generation of U.S. Jews will look different, be different than the generation before, and it is our commitment to create a fabric, a network for everybody to find their place, be counted, and be included. And so what does it mean for each one of us to move closer toward anti-racism? First, I just want to say between racist and anti-racist is not a non-racist or a neutral racist or even a well-meaning person. You're just racist. We are just racist. There is nothing between racist and anti-racist other than less racist, well-meaning racist, kind but cautious racist. And I think we've seen in the last week, the last month, the last years, that there is no room for racism in our community. It gets in the way of people feeling connected. It gets in the way of people coming to our community and fully participating. And it pushes Jews of all backgrounds, Jewish people of color, our partners, the people who love us, our family, it pushes us away. And in a time where our community is fractured by the tension and the chaos of somebody else's white supremacy and racism, let's harness who we are as a collective and commit to being anti-racist and constantly working on being better at being anti-racist, because it is one of the antidotes to not only the disintegration of community, it's the antidote to the disintegration of the US Jewish community. Being anti-racist also means that it's not just about being conscious about race and racism, but you, me, each one of us in the face of racism, we have to take concrete action and do something about it. It's not enough anymore to be well-meaning. It's not enough to say, I wish I had. Whatever power we have, whatever privilege we have, we need to take that power and that privilege, and in the face of racism, we need to stop that racism and take action to respond to the racist, respond to who's being harmed by racism, and do what we can to ensure that it never happens again. So I want to leave you with 4 things you can do right now, today, well, after Havdalah. But I want everyone to move. You're already active. I appreciate that, but it's not enough. And so let's do some more, and let's do more together. First, we all have power and we all have privilege, and we have to reflect on how we have gathered our power and how we've gathered our privilege. And has there been a cost to that gathering of the power and the privilege? And is that cost specifically related to marginalizing people of color? This country was founded upon the backs of Black and brown people, the labor, the uncompensated labor of Blacks and brown people in this country. And for any one of us who has resources, there's a pretty strong likelihood that those resources are related to extracting free labor, free knowledge, free land, free wisdom from people of color who did not consent to that extraction of labor and to whom they have not been compensated. And so we have to repair our relationships. We have to be conscious. We have to be wise. And then that work of repair, we need to use that to inform our racially equitable and just work and giving. We need to reflect on how we gained our power and privilege. We need to work out if we need to make repair, and we need to use that work to inform everything that we do next. I also want each one of us to get clear and share publicly, privately, over Shabbat dinner, at home, during Torah study, your commitment to working and leading in multiracial, multi-ethnic, anti-racist ways. It's not enough to be privately concerned about racism, or privately committed to being less racist, or privately committed to trying to make a difference if nobody sees or hears you. Each one of us is both leading and being led. And I want to invite you to be in your power around being a leader. And each one of us connects with people in different ways, through different tools and different modalities. And all of that is super important and super valuable. And each one of us needs to get clear on, what do we mean by being a leader? Each one of us is a leader. We lead quietly, we lead loudly, we lead at home, we lead in the classroom. But each one of us is a leader, and we must do it more and better in multiracial, multi-ethnic, and anti-racist ways. And we need to be able to talk about it. And we need to be able to have a value proposition. And we need to be able to be eloquent and articulating our commitment to the work. Because when we do that, we get stronger in our own commitment and our own confidence and our own passion. And then we infuse that energy in others, and we inspire others. And we each need to inspire each other. We are relying on each other. Number 3, we got to get really honest about what's at stake if we continue to be well-meaning and well-intentioned, but stay the current course. What's at stake is our community. What's at stake is the opportunity to teach about anti-racism and our multiracial, multi-ethnic Jewish community in a Jewish context, in a Jewish way, if we don't do this work in the Jewish community. It's so clear that beyond these doors, beyond Shabbat tonight, beyond this community, there's an angry world out there that stayed the course and didn't respond when there were all these flags and all these symbols telling us our people are at risk. This country is at risk. Our community is at risk. And if we haven't seen enough, I don't know when we will. And so I'm telling you now, we need to each get honest about staying the course and make a decision about, is this enough? And I'm going to guess each one of us can do more. And so I want to posit that tonight, we must all commit to not doing enough, and that we need to make that commitment, rotate that into a commitment to do more. Spend 1 more minute each week, spend 1 more hour each week, spend 1 more day each month, spend 1 more cent, 1 more dollar, do a little bit more time. Read 1 more book, have 1 more conversation, intervene on 1 more racist, unacceptable act or action. Let's each do more for each other and for our community. And let me close by saying, with rigor and with discipline and vigor, do everything you can to actively apply multiracial, anti-racist tools and skills and thinking to make this community, our community, just and right. You should, being languid at this time cannot be an option. I want you to be active. I want you to be engaged. I want to invite you to be inspired. I want you to feel an invitation toward connection. And I want you to feel inspired and confident that you are part of, and we collectively are part of making such an important change. But we need to do more. We need to be vigorous and active about it. And we need to do all we can in the spirit of racial justice and racial equity for Jews of color, for people of color, for our multiracial families, for our multiracial communities and our multiracial country. We have the options to create change. We have the power to create change. We have the privilege to create change. We have the obligation to create change. And we have the opportunity to create change. I'm not sure we need more in terms of an invitation. And with that, I want to thank you for this invitation this evening. Thank you for allowing me to be with you this evening. I'm looking forward to continued conversation. Please join me for Torah study tomorrow morning. I'm looking forward to talking about this week's Parsha. And with that, I say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to you. Thank you so much, Alana, for that incredible teaching. And join her tomorrow morning at 11:30, where you can go more in depth and ask her questions, and she can help us all think about this more. We move to Aleinu. We start with the words Ein Od, without end. It's one of the names of God, but it's also the work that we have ahead of us. Ein Od, the little meditation that we start with. If you'd like to just close your eyes, let the music waft over you. Here we go. Ein Od, Ein Od,
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, lateit gerula leotzer breshit, shehu noten shamayim v'yoser haaretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim imam, u'shchinatu zon v'gov v'meronim, hu Eloheinu, Ein Od.
We turn now to Kaddish Yatom, and as we turn to Kaddish, we remember those in our congregational family who have died in the last month, whose families are observing Shloshim. Lou Lifson, Barbara Pergament, Pearl White, Habibola Jacob Khorsandi, Esther Albert, Al Servi, Norma Beck, and Harry Helft. If you take a look up on the screen now, you'll see the names of those that have died at this season in years past in our congregation. And we take all of those names into our hearts as well. And now we'll mention those that have come up in the chats on Facebook and YouTube. Before we get to those names, we have one introduction. I would like to go to Kim Monison.
The Martin Luther King Jr. holiday is an opportunity to reflect on the evils of the past and to reaffirm our belief in hope of a better tomorrow. But most importantly, it's a reminder that belief alone is futile. We are obligated, and it takes action to make change. One of the best characterizations of Dr. King comes from Rabbi Abraham Cooper and Dr. Harold Brackman of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. King was a modern-day Moses who led his people to the Promised Land, but like Moses of old, did not live to enter it. Another great characterization of Dr. King and his call to action was expressed in the final verse of a song performed sadly at his funeral by Nina Simone, and it was written by her bassist, Gene Taylor. But he had seen the mountaintop, and he knew he could not stop, always living with the threat of death ahead. Tell your parents that they better stop and think. Everybody knows we're on the brink. Better believe. What will happen now that the King of Love is dead? Dr. King is gone, but his legacy and the obligation to repair the world lives on in all of us.
Thank you, Kim. And now let's hear some of the names that were put on Facebook and YouTube chats.
Ethel Mizrahi, Maria Dolores Santos, Royston Smith, Harold Goetz, Dale Stern, Sylvia Farber Green, Auschwitz survivor, Papa Everest, Mike Hughes, Ian Hughes Wilson, Teresa Deutsch, Dawn Abney, Jerry Nichols, Joyce Appel.
We take those names that we've heard into our hearts. We also say Kaddish Yatom for those who have no one to say it for them. We say it to those that were lost in the Holocaust. We say it for the hundreds of thousands that have died from COVID-19. And we say it for those that have lost their lives in the violence of recent times, especially the 5 that were killed at the Capitol last week. Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'l'olmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol berachata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, damiran v'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, Amen. May the one who causes peace to reign on high bring peace down to us between every human being on earth. And we say,
Amen.
Amen. So, a couple of announcements. First of all, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Ava, wherever you are, for joining us this evening. It's so great to have you back, even though we can't feel it in the same way. We can feel your music go through us, and it's so wonderful to have you with us. A couple of other announcements. This Tuesday is the second installation of the Open Up Your Heart class. Has to do with inside Judaism and the outside world. We're going to be looking at the texts inside Judaism that talk about the outside world and our relation to it. Also, I wanted to make an announcement. Tomorrow night, we're going to do Havdalah. So you can join us at, I think it'll probably be 7. We usually do it at about 7. So you can join us for Havdalah. We're going to sing for an hour or so, and we take requests and all that. So please join us for that on Facebook and YouTube. And we'd like to thank everyone that was involved in this service so much for making it special. And I would especially like to thank our Jews of Color Task Force. We have some people that we'd like to thank.
We would like to thank the task force, Anike Torse, Veronica Abney, Wendy Liu, Beatrice Herman, Caroline Lovell Moore, and Jania Quinn. And we also want to thank the people who read poetry and shared their thoughts today. The Breyer family for lighting the candles, and Kim Monasan, Ella Nelson, Maya Gibson, Skylar Quinn, and of course, again, Alana Kaufman.
Thank you so much to all of you for helping make this service special. Cantor, you have any other announcements?
Oh my gosh, there's so many announcements, but really, we've started to share announcements or ads at the beginning of our countdown.
Right.
But in 2 weeks, and maybe Daniel, you can bring this up, in 2 weeks we have our Shabbat Shirah. We're collaborating
That's
with
going to be special.
7 other congregations in the country, in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York City, and it's going to be really special, so I hope everybody will join us. Now, that is at 6 p.m., not 6:15, and there's not really a countdown, so you really have to be there at 6 o'clock. There it is, virtual Shabbat Shirah. And there was something else.
Well, there's one other thing, is if you joined us for our opening of our album party on the 24th of December, it's out on
iTunes, well, Apple Music, Amazon Music.
There it is,
there
Amazon Music. We got it on
Spotify.
SoundCloud, on Spotify, on Apple Music. You can go to any of those places, and you can go to our website as well. But I don't think you can download it from the website.
I think you can, actually.
But please join us and listen to some of the songs we play at the beginning of in the warm up to the service. But others we do in the service. But please download the album and enjoy the music of Temple Emmanuel Beverly Hills. We're going to be ending with a special melody tonight, written by Ilana Arian, and it's called I Have a Voice.
It is. And we hope you will all sing with us. I will open my eyes.
I will open my eyes.
I will not look away.
I will not look away.
I will use this gift I've been given every day. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world. I will give of myself.
I will give of myself.
I will reach out my hand.
I will reach out my hand.
I will use this voice I've been given to take a stand. I have a voice.
My voice is powerful.
stand up for what's right.
I'll stand up for what's right.
I will use this strength I've been given to be alive. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change. One more time. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. May you feel blessed and safe. May you feel luminous and loved. May you feel joyous and whole.
Shabbat Shalom.